Dozens of local physicians and medical professionals are calling on city officials to protect Buffalo's youth to enforce the proactive rental inspections law, also known as the PRI.
A big part of the goal is to reduce high rates of lead poisoning among children. Right now, we are joined by Dr. Melinda Cameron, retired medical director at the Western New York Lead Poisoning Prevention Center. Dr. Cameron, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for inviting me.
This is an important thing to talk about. And before we talk about the law, I'm curious, when you were actively working as the medical director, what were some of the things you were seeing?
The bottom line is I see kids at the end of the line, other physicians screen, and if children's lead levels are extremely high, that means they need treatment. Damage is done at very low levels, so I am seeing really the tip of the iceberg. And the issue is, through all the years, I've been practicing for over 35 years in Buffalo as the regional person who treats these kids. They pretty much all uniformly come from rental housing in Buffalo. It's not owner-occupied, it's rental. And so when this happened in 2020, and the city really passed this legislation that was modeled on legislation in Rochester, New York, which was found to be very successful, it was very exciting for us in the lead world to know that, things were finally going to be different here. However, here we are 4 years later, and the record is not there of the inspections or the compliance or making sure that the homes are truly lead-free. And we're still seeing the kids with these extremely high levels.
This is really frustrating. 4 years later, this legislation was supposed to make these inspectors come in every 3 years. These people had to be in compliance. What's the problem in your mind?
I am not part of the city. I mean,
Yeah.
that is where the frustration comes in from the medical community, because we only are dealing with the individual cases and the kids, and it's always been known that you have to prevent lead poisoning. So the prevention has to be in their environment. We have to make their environment safe. And so I imagine, once you have that legislation calling for the inspections, I mean, you need the inspectors, you need the money to pay the inspectors, you need the courts to follow up on it, you need enforcement so that the landlords know and are responsible. Also, there are landlords that may not even know that there are dangers there. So, and now, summertime, this is the time when you can work on housing, when you can do inspections. In Buffalo, it's really a seasonal thing. During the wintertime, there's not a lot that can be done. And now's the time when kids also get into lead, because windows are open, they're on porches, our weather, this is when the weathering occurs during the wintertime. During the summertime, the kids are out, and that's when they ingest it. So now is the time really for lead awareness, to talk about lead, to really address it at its source, so we quit getting these kids that need treatment with these extremely high levels.
And children's bodies, they are actively developing, they are actively growing. When they are faced with high levels, extreme levels of lead, what does that do to their development?
That's the whole problem. I mean, you don't see it. That's why children need to be screened for it. They need a blood test. And it's babies. It's children within the first 2 years of life, basically, although we see 3-year-olds, other children that are a little bit older that have hand-to-mouth activity, especially kids with developmental delays. But all children explore their environment with their mouths, and that's normal. But they don't show symptoms. And it's not until later when you realize that they have a loss of IQ, that they're not doing as well in school, that they can't regulate their emotions, they may have ADHD. They've even associated it with criminal behavior and time in jail. So it's a whole impulse control toxin to the nervous system. And the issue is, once that's happened, we can get lead out of the body, but we can't change that nervous system that was formed in the presence of lead.
In this letter that all these medical professionals have written, I mean, what are you just hoping for here in the near future now?
To get a concrete plan, that the city has a plan, that they show some progress, and that there's a timetable for doing this with adequate funding and reporting, so that everyone is aware of what progress has been made, where we are, where there are problems or things that need to be changed.
I know you mentioned it was a success in Rochester. How does it compare? You mentioned that timeline. How should it work successfully?
Well, I mean, each city is different. You have a
course.
different number of rental units, you have different finances. I really can't address that, but it's at least something that we don't expect to go on for 10, 15 years. It's something that we need action now. We needed action yesterday. We've known about this in Buffalo for a long, long time, and it really needs to be addressed. And again, in my world of treating kids, I really consider lead paint still a much higher priority than lead in the water. And that's also frustrating to me as well. It's a background source, we need to attend to it, but the children that I see are very much more affected with much higher levels, and it hasn't been solved.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Cameron. We know you're retired now. Thank you for continuing to push for this. We're hoping to do some updates on this very soon.
That would be excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.